miracles do happen. A gorgeously imaginative new musical is now on Broadway. Water for Elephants is a New York Times Critics' Pick. It's stunning, emotional, spellbinding entertainment. A dazzling love story, propulsive with passion. Don't miss the best new musical on Broadway, Water for Elephants. Get tickets now at telecharge.com and choose the ride.
All right. Hello, welcome everyone. I hope you are as excited as I am today to be here with the cast of Water for Elephants, the amazing new musical. So today we'll have director Jessica Stone and cast members Grant Gustin, Isabelle McCalla, Gregg Edelman, and Paul Alexander Nolan. Water for Elephants brings the critically acclaimed best-selling novel to vivid life in an incredibly engaging and inspiring Broadway musical. After losing what matters most, a young man jumps a moving train, unsure where the road will take him, finding a new and unexpected home with the remarkable crew of a traveling circus and a life and love beyond his wildest dreams. Water for Elephants opened on March 21st at the Imperial Theater on Broadway to rave reviews. Hailed as a critic's pick, the New York Times calls it stunning, emotional, and gorgeously imaginative. For those watching live or in person here today, we will have time for Q&A from the audience towards the end of the show. So if you have any question you would like to ask any of the amazing artists who are here about the show, I'll let you know when it's time to do that. So now, to kick off, please welcome to the stage Isabelle McCalla and Grant Gustin, who will be performing the song Wild from Water for Elephants. Hey.
When was the last time you were silent? I don't mean quiet, I mean you could hear yourself inside.
I don't know.
You should try it, 'cause when I listen, after all that time, when I listen to me, I feel wild, 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 wild and free. When I left home for the road, I held my life in my hands. Then I slowly lost grip, but now I'm taking it back again. To say what I feel and to feel what I say, they have to be the same.
I believe that there's something, maybe somewhere, a way to be. Maybe it's a person, not a place.
Say what you mean.
When I first saw you, when I saw you, I felt wild, 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 wild. When I lost all I had known, my grief led me down the road to drown the sound of my pain in that whistling train. Give myself to the unknown. I could have ended it then. I chose anywhere instead, and then it led me to you. The world was new. I fell in love. It was easy and clear, but I could never say if you felt the same. Oh, just when I think I know the feeling you surprises me, rises up and holds me gently. It's that look in your eye that moves me, that draws me in to see what you're seeing. I see you see me in this moment, and you're thinking like me, it can't be just this moment. There's a flicker of flame. It's asking what comes after. When I'm with you,
When I'm with you, you make me feel wild. I feel wild. I see us being wild, 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 wild and
thank you.
Thank you.
First off, thank you so much for making the time to be here today and share all of your talents and everything with us. We're very, very happy to have you. So Gregg, first question. Water for Elephants centers...
Well, I shouldn't have sat here. Yes.
So Water for Elephants, it centers around the life and memories of your character, Mr. Jacob Jankowski. Can you tell us a bit about Mr. Jankowski and set the stage for how the show and the story begins?
Oh my gosh, this is a big question. Hello, is this on? Oh, good.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that is a big question. I mean, he's a wonderful man. He's had a very full life, but as he got older, like so many of I have a lot of older friends, and their lives, they sort of begin to think back on their life, and maybe they're not so happy with where their life has led them to in their their later years. Okay. So he's not as happy as he once was, and the circus coming to town really sort of sparks his sort of reviewing of his whole life and what was good and what was difficult, and how he became a man who had a great life. He ended up having a great life with a lot of love and children and just amazing. But the circus coming to town sort of sparks that whole sort of review, and that's how the play starts. My character goes to the circus, and through some wonderful writing and directing. It's true though. It's really true. It's done so economically, but it's done really beautifully so that we can shift into what's inside my mind, Yeah. And then we go down this journey.
That was perfectly said.
Was it really? Was it good?
It was great. Yes, thank you.
I'm having
Perfect.
flop sweats.
And in kicking off the story, we then meet the younger Jacob Jankowski, played by played by Grant. Grant, can you tell us about Jacob and what he encounters when he makes the leap onto the train?
Yeah, so when we find younger Jacob, he's just lost everything that matters to him in life. He's had, there's been a tragic accident where he lost both his parents, and this is the peak Great Depression, I guess, middle of the Great Depression. So when he loses his parents, he also ends up literally losing everything. There's nothing left for him where he's grown up at his home. So he decides to just go, and he goes west, and there happens to be this train that he ends up jumping on, and it ends up being a circus train wherein a lot of story ensues.
Yes, a lot of story ensues.
I don't want to spoil too much for the rest of the interview.
Yeah, no, for sure. And part of the story that ensues, we meet Paul, your character, the ringmaster of the Benzini Brothers Circus. Yeah. So you managed to bring this very charming exterior shell, but at the same time have some dark manipulative qualities in this role. Can you give us a bit of a glimpse into your character, the antagonist August?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Playing villains is fun because there's usually a lot of dynamic. But August is very dynamic because he is trying to keep this circus together. He's trying to keep his marriage intact, and he's got this new veterinarian who joins the circus, which they desperately need. And because they are, in 1931, trying to evade starvation in the Great Depression, he's a very stressed out man. and and an ambitious man. So that's not a great answer to your question.
No, that's great.
But it's like the worst thing to ask me about my character because I don't really know. I get to discover him every night, in a way. So, but that creates some of the central tension is this triangle between my wife, the new young guy that's helping out the circus that we need,
Right.
And my ambition and need to keep it all together.
Yeah, and speaking of your wife, of course, we have the amazing Marlena. Isabelle, can you tell us more about Marlena's journey?
Yeah. So Marlena is the wife of this lovely guy back here. She's an equestrienne, so she has a Liberty Horse Act, and she has a deep affinity for animals. And she ran away to join the circus when she was 18 because it was either a life as a housewife in Cleveland society wasting away, or falling in love with a very charming and effervescent man and getting to train animals for her life. So she chose that. But in doing so, her parents essentially cut her off and said, "You're dead to us." So she's kind of trapped on I don't like to say she's trapped. She chose to live a life on a circus train, but it is 1931 and she's a woman, so it's not like there are a lot of financial means for her to be on her own. However, I think when we meet August and Marlena, they've been married for about a decade, and I think there were parts that were really, really loving and beautiful, and I think they were intellectually matched in some way. And what one of Marlena's gifts is she's able to tame both animals and people, and she's kind of one of the only people who can get through to August and calm him down. And she sees the heart and good in everyone and tries to bring that out. But when at the point in which we meet them all, things start devolving pretty rapidly.
They do indeed. Jessica, so you directed this amazing show. It's absolutely thrilling to watch. You've woven together so many very interesting elements to tell the story, not just through the song and dance, but through beautiful puppetry and really insane acrobatics. So can you tell us more about how you approached directing the show and how maybe it differed from any of the previous shows that you've worked on?
Well, I had never worked with I had never worked with circus artists. I'd actually never worked with puppets, and for a long time hated puppets. That's been rectified. But I think the thing about it, I never really thought about the show as this giant, piece of visual theater. It always was a memory play to me, and the idea that, well, yes, we meet older Jacob when when he's at the circus and remembering this chapter in his life, but the reason he's there is because he's just lost everything again, which we don't learn until later, and he's about to make a change again, and he doesn't even know what that change is. He just knows that where he is terrible. And so the idea that you have this character thinking about another time in his life when he lost everything, and who are you when you do that? When you lose everything, who are you? What do you choose? Do you choose to give up? Do you choose to go after your enemy? What do you do? And what's so beautiful to me about this protagonist is how much hope he has, that in the middle of darkness and despair, he can still see starlight. And so that, to me, was something that you can sing about. And thinking about some of the most vibrant chapters in your life when you meet the woman that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, when you meet the woman of your dreams, when you see a creature for the first time that you've never seen before who's going to become such a big part of your life, what part of that memory sticks? And so once you think about memory and how some of it's really vibrant and some of it's kind of blurry, and suddenly circus makes sense, and those vibrant chapters to use that circus vocabulary of being on a tight wire or being in aerial silks flying through the air to represent a particularly important memory really made sense to me. And puppetry, to think of it in terms of an impressionistic approach. It's not just a literal horse that you're looking at, because that's a bummer. Just go to the zoo. Like, you know, what you want to see is what he remembers of the horse and why and how that horse made him feel. And so that suddenly became a really interesting way in to look at how it looks. So that's how that happened over many years.
Amazing. And everybody did such an amazing job at conveying that amazement that Jacob felt through those moments, that I called them like pure wow, because there were so many times that I literally was like, oh gosh, like what's happening on stage? This is amazing. And it really helped tie the narrative together too, as well. So you talked a bit about this, but to give everyone some context, when I said insane acrobatics, I mean, we're talking about like acrobatic flips, aerial silks, with acrobats throwing each other across the stage and performing these death drops that are like sliding head first down like the big top pole. So, I mean, I don't know if you all like audibly gasped.
We don't call it a death drop, but
I mean, that's what I would call it.
But it's pretty thrilling.
So. What would you call it?
Gabs drop.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah. But notably, the acrobats aren't the only circus artists in the show, and all of you are participating in different ways. Grant, there's a moment where you're in the air swinging on a trapeze, and you're also singing while you're doing it. So can you tell us what that's like? Is it fun? Is it terrifying?
It is now. Yeah, no, it is fun now. I'm comfortable with it now. Yeah, but I forget how it was first mentioned to me. It was like in the audition process, and like I kind of thought it was like a joke or an exaggeration, or I was harnessed for sure. I think that's part of what I thought. Like I'm for sure harnessed, but no, yeah, I'm not harnessed. I'm just like standing on a platform and grab a trapeze.
He came into the audition, and I said, "How are you with heights?" And he was like, I'm okay."
Lion auditions. Like, can you ride a horse? Yeah. Yeah, heights. That was heights don't like bother me like that, but like
maybe swinging
once
really
it's
high
real,
up.
Though it's like real, and so yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Do you have to like train like your grip strength? Like, how do you make sure you're not gonna like?
Yeah, I am literally just hanging. Like I don't do like Izzy actually does some trapeze work in the show that's gorgeous. Like I literally just hang and swing. But they did Shayna Carroll, the circus choir, they take it very seriously, and it wasn't just like you just hang.
Yeah.
They made sure I could do a certain amount of pull-ups and to get my like pike position to sit on the trapeze if anything were to go wrong. So I have to be able to take care of myself in case something goes wrong. Yeah.
Totally.
One of the things, sorry to interject, but one of the biggest pleasures I've had with this entire experience, and we talked about this a bit, because Paul trained a lift and a trick in the middle of Lion that was so impressive, and he actually did it pretty quickly and easily, and we ended up cutting it because it actually wasn't appropriate dramaturgically for the character. And to maintain it in terms of coverage and replacements and all of that was going to be really tricky. But a lot of it just wasn't right for August. But we talked about the value of even training it and doing it, because this company, they're all doing things, they're all participating in skills that are outside of their lane. Everybody is a puppeteer at one point, except for maybe you.
I just manipulate everybody else.
Correct. That's right. But almost everybody is a puppeteer, and almost nobody had puppeteering experience. You have singers and dancers who are doing circus tricks, and you have acrobats who are singing, and everybody's a little bit outside of their lane, which I think creates a community of trust and grace and humility and sort of game, like this game work ethic. Everyone's a little bit reckless and also very safe, but they're not precious, which is an amazing thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, and you mentioned Izzy's trapeze routine, which is gorgeous in the show. Can you talk about what the training was like for that?
Yeah. I similarly started training grip strength and learning I can't do a pull-up, but I can hold and do some pike stuff. And I grew up dancing. So I have a background of dancing for 12 years. And kind of the way it worked is there was, when we put up the show first for Atlanta, there were so many departments going on at once that I remember being like in a corner, and Shayna, our circus choreographer, sent 2 of the acrobats with me to just play around on the trapeze. Nice. And so they showed me some tricks and kind of talked me through it. And I honestly don't know when we came up with the routine we came up with, but I remember really liking it and having a lot of fun. I've also always been a daredevil, and I'm always down to like try new things. And I think kind of piggybacking off of what you said, in this community of trust and support and recklessness, there is a view that the world is your playground that kind of permeates throughout the entire company. And so they're also supportive in making us feel capable of doing it. That when I was playing on the trapeze, it just felt like play. It didn't feel like I was constructing a routine. And then it happened to be a lyrical, legit trapeze routine. But yeah, you start off like training on a mat with the ropes, and then it gets raised higher, and then I am also very ambitious, and I wanted like to do 50 other tricks, and Shayna was like, absolutely not.
Yeah, so you asked for more things.
I'm like, please, come on, coach, I could do it.
She would sneak stuff in tech. She'd be like messing around on the trapeze. Tech is when, you're in this dark theater putting light on everything for the first time, and she'd be in the trapeze, and I would just hear Shayna's voice in the darkness, frankly, right next to me going, Izzy.
I try to stand up on a trapeze, which we had trained, but we hadn't trained it with the rise. Circus folk are very particular about safety, and I should honor that, and I do.
Yes.
But I love the trapeze. It's very fun.
So that's amazing. And Gregg, you're also up in the air in this production. Have you encountered anything like this in your 40-year career in theater?
Nothing like this. Is like amazing. And I have to say, the spirit of all the circus performers was so supportive and welcoming, that it was always a sense of, it's going to be fine. It's all good. We'll all be here for each other. I remember I have to do this one thing where I'm like surrounded by all the performers, and they're just doing all kinds of things to me and pulling my head and all that stuff. And then they say, so you're going to have a knife in your hand. And while you're looking out, you drop the knife. And there's somebody at the floor in front of me. And I was like, well, I mean, so there's a person down there. And I dropped the knife. Oh, don't worry, it's going to be fine, because don't worry. I was like, okay. And, so it's that kind of,
oh my gosh,
everything's very safe, but the energy is very can-do, and we're all taking care of each other. And you just go for it. It's been a really lovely experience.
And someone catches the knife.
Yeah, well, that's
the
even
end
more.
Of the routine is not that someone's impaled.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you're ruining the surprise. No, but it really, that was the other part. It's like, oh, don't worry, drop it, but don't worry, someone catches that. There was one time when they said, if you could hold your hand a little higher, it'll give me another second to catch the knife. And I'm like, yeah, whatever you need.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a great question for all of you. Like, with so much going on around you on this stage, was it challenging to just make sure you hit the right marks? Like, was it nerve-wracking to be like, okay, I need to do my part to not interfere in some respects too, or drop it?
It's interesting. I think that because of how you stage the show, it's not just the acrobatics, those kind of things that required us to be in specific places. Mm-hmm. But once we you started adding the element of the lighting to the show's so theatrical, you always need to be very mindful of where you're standing in this show, because the fluid reality, which makes it so fun to watch, requires us to be mindful of, being in the light, basically. So, I don't know how you feel about that. Yeah.
And then, I mean, Jessica, what was the insurance policy like on this? Like, no, you don't have to answer that. That was just a joke question. But yeah, I thought it was really brilliant the way that you've, put everything together. And you spoke a bit about this too, contrasting the bold, animated, like high-flying moments of the circus with these subdued, reflective scenes, and a lot of intentional moments where I felt you were giving space to the audience, like for their imagination, both in the stage and the puppetry design. And I mean, what inspired you to create those moments? Were you thinking about it early on when you first were working on this?
Yes, some of it actually, when I first met to see if I was even a good fit for it, when I was meeting with the producers, they said, okay, go away, take some time and come back to us and talk to us about how you might want to do the Stampede I was like, oh my God, a stampede. And the train and an elephant and, how would you want to use circus? So I actually had I had worked on it before I even had the job. And found a way in that felt interesting to me before I even had the job, which was useful.
Yeah.
And again, memory is a big part of it. And it helped sort of inform how I wanted to do all of that.
I love it. And very early on in Act 1, there's a great memory of Jacob jumping onto the train, and it's done in slow motion. And that I saw that and I was like, I think I'm gonna love this show. Like, it was really cool.
That was actually a last minute ad.
Really?
We didn't have that for a while. And
Wow.
I talked to Shane, our circus designer and co-choreographer. She also, Jessie Robb is our other choreographer. And we're like, that's an important moment. He jumped on the train, so we want to have a circus expression of that leap. It's a really big memory for him.
Yeah.
So that was a last minute ad.
So well executed, loved it. And yeah, so and within the puppetry too, you're incorporating a lot of facial expressions of like the acrobatic actors and conveying the emotions of the animals as well. What inspired you to kind of use that in that way?
Well, a lot of the stuff with the animals has more to do with Jacob's memory of it. So, for instance, Silver Star, it's less about looking at Antoine's face and more about the fact that for the first time he saw the skill of this woman. He watched this woman that he instantly falls in love with, basically, before he even realizes it. And he watches her soothe this horse that's really injured and in pain. So it had to do with, I wanted to see that. I wanted to see this performer go from agitation to calm. And so that's what inspired how we do the horse. And the elephant was less about, and eventually you don't see as many facial expressions with the elephant. But was more about, well, we can't reach her. We don't know how to communicate with her. And so he only remembers bits of her. In certain chapters. He remembers like seeing her ears for the first time, or he remembers interacting with her trunk. And then he remembers when she starts to listen to him, he remembers her walking. And when he realizes he understands how to communicate with her, only then do we see her in full.
Wow. Yeah.
So it really comes, the interpretation of every animal comes from what his memory of that chapter was.
Yeah, that was so cool as well. Izzy, you've done like such a beautiful job in that scene with your horse and with the song Easy, where you're comforting this beloved horse. What was it like to perform with people in puppetry? Like, since none of you had experience doing that before.
So fun. I don't know how you feel, but I love my brain when it's learning new things, and there's obviously a big learning curve with puppetry specifically. And Easy is a very deceptively difficult song to do. Vocally it's challenging, but also I remember when the first time I did it at the Darrell Theater, we had a horse puppet, and it just kind of like rested on my lap, and everybody thought the horse was dead. And so even though its spirit was flying above, it was like, oh, she sent it off to heaven. No, the horse is still very much alive. So the learning curve of Easy specifically was learning how to puppet a horse in one hand while taming it with the other, while singing the song, and making it look, for lack of a better word, easy. But the fun came in we worked with our amazing puppet choreographer to figure out specific movements that reflected life and also pain, and in what direction can you like up makes the horse look like its neck is broken versus out. You can't. There's so much about like the spine that has to stay in place too, and so there's a lot of control that has to happen with puppeting. And once I got those basic mechanics of the puppet, the fun started happening because I could then connect with Antoine, who plays the spirit of Silver Star, and kind of watch his aerial routine and match it to how I was puppeting.
Wow.
And it's kind of fun because I'm still learning new things about his routine and still finding points where I can mirror what he's doing physically, either gesturally with the horse head or with my own body on this side of me. So definitely a challenge, but one of the most rewarding challenges I've been gifted.
I
That's
just want to jump
amazing.
in and say, because we get to watch you each night, and being an acting is reacting, but we sit there on stage each night, and it's just stunning, and it's one of those things. The show is kind of my memory, but the way you're technically doing bringing Silver Star to life, and then at the same time doing your other thing of calming. It's like you're doing the agitation, the pain, and the calming at the same time. We just go on the ride and watch you. You're amazing in that scene. You're amazing everywhere, but you're amazing in that scene. Oh no, it's just,
I would
love
like to interject that these two also,
Yes.
we'll talk about you in a minute.
I'm having a great time. Don't worry.
yeah.
These two also have to do a fair amount of puppeteering with Queenie the dog, who is, a lot of the puppets have a marriage to a circus skill set. So, the lion is the lion dance actually in the circus. It's an acrobatic act. And, Silver Star is an aerialist act. But Queenie is about sleight of hand because Queenie is the clown's dog. So she's sleight of hand. You can flip her over and suddenly she's a pile of rags. Then you flip her back and she's a dog. And these two handle her quite a bit, especially you in the middle of scenes, and have to keep her alive, like with the tail wagging and licking your chin and looking around and seeing, she's sort of mopey and then she sees her owner and perks up a little bit. It's really incredible. It's like rubbing your stomach and patting your head
Oh my
at the
gosh.
same time.
I
It's
can't
incredible to watch.
And do you have dogs either? No? Yeah. Did you real life
always had dogs.
experience with
I mean, yeah, sure. I guess it's like a part. It's like it's like anything in life where it's like it's just kind of seeped into.
Sure.
I don't intentionally do anything, but I know how dogs behave, so I guess it kind of finds its way in.
And I'm part dog, so I.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense for sure. So I just wanted to talk a bit about a very prominent theme in this story, which is love, and not just simply the love of between people, but love and empathy for animals, such as with that majestic Rosie the elephant. In contrast to the beautiful developing connection we see between Marlena and Rosie, and Jacob and Rosie, August has a different kind of view on the elephant Rosie, as well as all the circus animals. But was it challenging to play your character who may not have been so nice to this lovable elephant?
Well, the short answer is I'm an actor, so
Yeah.
you figure out what you're actually doing. I will admit, and Jessica and I had a long conversation about it when they first asked me to do the show. I was nervous because I hadn't been part of. Izzy did some work on this before it came to Broadway. The rest of us hadn't, and so I didn't know the world in which August worked. And the last time I was here at Google, I was with a play called Slave Play that, ended up being quite psychologically challenging. But as it's turned out, the way that the play is constructed for us in Water for Elephants, I get to play two characters. One is called Charlie. He's a modern day circus manager, if that's what you would call him. And then August, of course, in the 1930s, who is the owner of the circus and the ringmaster, and cruelly exploiting the animals to his own benefit. So this is now the long answer of saying it's less difficult than I expected, partly because I get the secondary character who is a good person and is a good boss to end the show with. I don't have to just end in a violent death.
Yeah.
Spoiler
alert.
But also, any violence that my character August exerts in the show is not seen; it's inferred, and as far as the physicality of it, but psychologically, it's different. He's got a bit of a cracked mind, in my opinion, and battles with the the tension of needing for this to work, and then also losing his marriage slowly and seeing that happening.
Yeah.
So that's my answer. It has turned out to be a little more fun than expected, and I will give credit to my cast for that because of the way that we all work together.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing horrible things on stage and then going off and going like this.
Truly, he's not
being
exaggerating.
jerks as soon as we get off stage.
But okay, we have to acknowledge though how critical it is to the story for you to be playing this character so well, and you do it very, very well and very, very skilled. So thank you for doing that, for playing this character. And also, I mean, I know while everybody's eagerly awaiting the Tony Award noms coming up, Water for Elephants actually already won a Pony Award, which you heard that right, Pony, which is an award from PETA, and it's to celebrate the care and creativity and compassion around animals in the storytelling, and that is no small task. So thank you for that. Okay, so let's pivot a little bit, just while we have a little more time. Okay. I'd love to know a little bit more about the role development and maybe some of your career paths here. So I guess let's start with Grant. Okay, what a show to be in for your Broadway debut.
Yeah. Truly.
So many people might know you from TV. You played The Flash, you were on Glee. How did you make the switch to Broadway? Was this something you wanted to do? And what was that transition like?
Yeah, I did want to get on stage first after doing Flash for so long. Part of that was like, I grew up doing theater. I had done exclusively, community theater, regional theater, college theater, and a national tour of West Side Story from the time I was 10 until I was 21. So that's all I had done before I did TV. Wow. And then, something like Flash happens and you don't know it's going to go for almost 10 years. Suddenly you're on a ride that lasts, for the better part of most of my adult life. I was 23 when it started and 33 when it finished. And I loved playing that character, but it also gets really comfy and easy in some ways. And I knew I wanted to get on stage when it ended, to kind of make myself uncomfortable and like scare myself a little bit and see if I could still do it. So yeah, I wanted to get on stage when Flash ended, but I didn't know if it was going to be, I didn't think it'd be possible to get to originate something, which was always my dream. And then this just kind of like felt like perfect timing. It was just, and it was very traditional. Like the role opened up and I got an appointment to make a tape for it and flew to New York for a callback and had to go get it, and which I wanted to. Like I had a couple opportunities during Flash because of the visibility that show gave me, that I had an opportunity to come in and be replacements in a couple Broadway shows for really short stints. And I always had that. I have imposter syndrome always, and like with stuff like that, you feel like, oh, I didn't earn this. Like Flash is getting me this, and
I see.
So it was nice to feel like I had to go get it, and it's like it feels like the perfect show, and I feel really lucky to be a part of it.
I want to interject. To be clear, he belongs to us. and I don't mean Water for Elephants. Yes, we're very territorial, but to the theater, he without a doubt, he is a member of the theater community. He is a creature of the theater, and he's wonderful on TV. But it's rare to find somebody who is so effortlessly authentic and dropped in, and the discipline required. There's discipline in television and film too, but the kind of discipline required in the theater, he has in spades. Like he belongs to us. I'm just gonna say.
Thank you. That's sweet.
Awesome. And Izzy, you were a part of the original Atlanta cast, yes? And what was that role development like? You told us a little bit about the dance with the trapeze and such, but from the initial run to now, has the role changed? Have you added more to the depth of Marlena?
Yeah, I hope for sure I've added more to the depth of her. I think, in Atlanta, I felt like we got, or I can only speak for myself, I felt like I got the blueprint of my Marlena out there. I felt like I understood where she started and where she ended. And then moving to Broadway, I feel like I got to color her in and shade her a little bit more. And Jess and I had conversations about really making her the gyroscope of the company, in the sense that she is the calming, grounded epicenter of the chaos around her. And I'm a little chaotic in my normal life, so that was just a good grounding exercise. And I think the way I work too is I attack things at first, and it takes a while for them to sink into my body and then become internal. But I think having worked with, I will say, these three men who have joined the company have only made our show so much richer and more complex, and I'm so grateful for what they bring to the roles, because they make me so much better. And I remember saying this, I think it was like day 2 of rehearsal to you. She was like, how are you doing? You've got all these new people around you. And I was like, I'm not worried. I know Grant's gonna ground me, and I know Paul's gonna surprise me. And to this day, that still happens every single day. When I feel like I'm lost, I look to him for grounding. And if I feel like I don't know what's gonna come next, I just look at him and he does something new every single day. And it makes me alive. And so, I love him.
Don't tell Jessica.
Oh, I know. Jessica knows. Loves.
I don't have a formula for how it's deepened and gotten better. I just have moments where, it feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I have some bad habits that I fall into, and then I break through those habits and create new ones. And I just feel more comfortable in Marlena than I ever have before. And I had a moment last week where she felt like mine, and she felt like me, and I felt at ease on stage, not thinking about, I have to hit this beat here and this beat here and make sure I'm showing all these different relationships. I don't feel like I have to show anymore, which is nice. I just feel like I get to exist with this group of people. So it was a journey from, let's do it, to I got it. And that's the kind of...
It's a challenging part. It was a challenging part to adapt and write. And I think it's a challenging part to play. Because in the book, Marlena often, when it gets hot in the kitchen, she puts her hand to her mouth and doesn't say anything. And so having that kind of character sing was a challenge to write. And I think what's so beautiful about Izzy and Izzy's Marlena is there's so much intelligence, and there's so much integrity, and there's so much soul. And that is testament to Izzy the human and to Izzy the actor, because it definitely, we started working on this even long before Atlanta. We did a workshop of it, of the first 30 pages. And so it's really, it's not just your performance, it's also, it's the writing, and it's, inspiration from Izzy that helped the writing, and helped the development of the writing.
Can I just add one more thing about
Sure.
Sorry, I don't mean to monopolize this time, but thought a lot about her. I think one of the reasons that makes it challenging is that I think one of the traps is that people think she is the victim. I get asked questions a lot about, she's trapped in this marriage, she has nowhere to go, and it's like, no, she's not trapped. One of the things I love about the way the role has been written and developed is that she owns her choices. She chose to love this man, she chose to leave her family, she chooses to go off her own, and then eventually chooses to love this other person. But that's a byproduct of going from putting everybody else's interest in front of before her own, and then deciding to choose herself. And so I think that's the really exciting part, the way the arc, oh my gosh, I can't speak English, the way that the character has developed is that.
Amazing. Yeah. I love that perspective. So in a minute, we're going to open up the floor to audience questions. If you would like to ask any of these amazing artists a question about the show, please feel free to head to one of the mics in the aisles. And as we're, queuing that up, one more open question just for everybody. What do you hope audiences take away from seeing this show?
That is so mean that you gestured to me.
I've heard you answer it really well in interviews before, so.
You're very good at these big questions
Well,
of life.
what I hope they take away, I hope it takes their breath away. I hope that that for 2 hours and 15 minutes, we have a really long intermission, and that's not our fault, that's the Imperial's fault, but that for 2 hours and 15 minutes, that people are moved, and that people feel great about community and finding your tribe and choosing to live and choosing the ride. I saw it. Yeah, I hope it takes their breath away and that they just feel joy.
You certainly accomplished that for me as I was watching it. So
It's only for us.
perfect.
That's not anywhere else. But it's just,
It says choose the ride, and so I thought it was prompting me.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's take an audience question.
Thank you all for being here. So my question is back to, I guess, characters and source material in your experience with this show, and I guess other shows too. I mean, we talked about The Flash, right? Where does that character, that, you know, either the comic book or the novel character, or even the film character, end and you begin? And do you ever find it limiting? Do you ever feel that you need to break away from what's been written and find it on your own?
for me, it's not super conscious. Like I love when there's a book or like there's an adaptation of something, and like doing The Flash, that there was so much source material, but like it's not super conscious. Like I liked reading as much as I can, and then doing as much research as I can in general, whatever that is I can get my hands on, and then just I don't really think about it again. But like it's gonna find its way in. Kind of the same. Like I was joking before with like, I have dogs, I know how they behave, but I'm not like consciously like my dog does this. It's just kind of like a part, I have experience with it. So for me, that's what research is. I don't like try to like intellectually like make it a part of my character. I just let it, hope it's seeped in because I read it.
It's interesting for my character too. You do the homework, you read the book, you read the script, and you do all that sort of like intellectual work. But and then you sort of see where that takes you. Mm-hmm. But the way you've staged the show, there are numerous times where I'll be watching something, and I don't actually have lines to respond to, but I would find myself, especially once we got in the theater, and the lighting creates this magical kind of like world for the show because the realities are very fluid that way. And I would be like, for example, the Silver Star scene, and I would be in the scene just responding because this is my memory, and all of this other stuff begins to get added to the embroidery of my performance. And of course, and you're so good about giving feedback, but when I wouldn't get like, don't do that, Gregg, I would be like, oh, so that's an interesting, I can do this embroidery, and it's all kind of coming from here. It's not on the page, but it's all it does originate on the page. And then that embroidery, that's that creative embroidery that we can do as actors. It's this interesting sort of marriage of script and trusting the director and then just going for it and seeing what happens. That happens a lot in this show, especially for me, because there's a certain amount of text, but then there's numerous times when I'm watching, and I all of a sudden thought, oh, there's a light on me. I actually should be doing something here, but it was actually helps me so much for my journey through the night because without you telling me, I was like, oh, this is really integral to the telling of the story, not only seeing what's happening, but seeing how I feel about what's happening. Mm. And so it's a cool thing, the word embroidery. Embroidery, look it up. Yeah, embroidery.
Oh. Your character is a conflation of two characters from the book.
Thanks a lot, Jessica.
You're welcome. How do you feel about that?
I always get nervous to talk about acting because it's a little bit like a magic trick, and if you've seen the movie The Prestige, the more you talk about it, the less interesting you are. So, an audience projects a lot onto an actor. I think it happens a ton on the stage, and I think it's a useful tool to allow it, because I can't possibly fill in August the way you can. I can fill it in to a certain extent, and then the audience does the rest. And I would say I noticed that when I was playing Jesus, because I was like, how do you play Jesus Christ? Like, how do you play, So I did very little other than my internal work on that, and just had to allow the audience the space to play the character for me in a way. That's simplifying it a lot and makes it sound like I don't know what the hell I'm doing, which I don't. With August, I would say with every musical theater, to me, reinvents the rules almost every time you do a show. I mean, Jessica, directed Kimberly Akimbo last year. It couldn't be more different. Like, they've got a very realistic set, and it's a very different script, and it's just a very different mode of storytelling. And when we come together to create something new, you're trying to figure out the truth. At least this is the way I'd put it. You're trying to find out the truth of that world and the truth of your own character in that world. And sometimes it comes really easily, and sometimes it doesn't. I remember even in tech, and Jess doesn't know this, but even in tech, I was calling my coach in Canada going, I may be fired. Like, this may be the worst work I've done in New York.
Again, I did know that.
Did you know that? So I just say everything. Anyway, I just called her every night and said, so are you firing me? So I've lost track of the actual question, but to me, acting is really mysterious, and to kind of pad in a different, same sentiment, different language. I like to set up the rules for myself so that I can set myself free, so that I can be present tonight. That's why I like doing what we do, is there's a certain amount of OCD to being a theater actor, that you know what's going to happen every night, but you have to trick yourself into not knowing what's going to happen next. And it can be so fun. And you're not going to get every moment like that every night, but if you can get one or two scenes like that, it's triumphant. It can be really, really fun. So the thing that you have to risk, though, is getting it wrong. And that's just as informative as getting it right. Like, you can't ever get it right. So I don't know. That's a terrible answer. But I with August, it was a very different approach for me than the last few things that I've done. And thankfully, Jessica had done enough work, and a ton of work for the last 7 years, 7-ish, that, she really knew the character very well, and I could see it in the way she was talking about it. So, you absorb a bit of that and then personalize it. And see what I mean? It's the prestige. You're bored, and I'm bored of talking about myself.
You know what? That reminds me of a great anecdote that Paul Newman used to talk about, when people said, why did he get into car racing, auto racing? And he got into it because he said, it's very much like acting. Obviously, if you crash a car into a wall, it's much more serious. But the danger of having to respond in the moment, that edge, I think we we're all kind of get into that because we love that sort of moment of, it's very like athletics too. Yeah. It's that sort of in the moment responding and seeing what happens. And of course, the audience is always adding an X factor that makes it fun,
Amazing.
So,
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for that question. All right, I think we have a couple more time for a couple more questions. Go for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. I saw the show last week, and I absolutely loved it. I thought visually, especially, it was different from anything that I've seen, recently, if not at all. And so I guess I know we have a mix of folks who have done Broadway before, and then also obviously that haven't done Broadway before but have done other things. So I was curious, from your perspective, how different is this from other things you've done, and how maybe how it isn't different from other things that you've done, and have you been able to find synergies from past work for something that is, especially from the acrobatics and the puppetry and the things that we've spoken about, is so different and so unique to this show specifically?
I think that one of the things that is so different is that it's really one company. And as I said before, it's not like you just have pockets of different skill sets and they only do the thing that they're trained for and good at. Everybody does everything. And I think that actually is very different, that I don't know has been done really before. The thing that I have found has been the most interesting and challenging and ultimately rewarding is everybody's got a different process. So a circus kind of biorhythm and process is very different than, you know, an actor's. And there's an element of like everybody, they have to not just warm up, but train every day. You know, there's just a different, there's different vocabulary for what's safe, what's not safe, why we have to stop. And actors need different stimulus and different triggers, and also have a very, the timeline of your way into a character looks very different than the timeline of your way into a bunkeen, which is a trick that, you know, you're hurled into the air. So that process was really interesting to Mary, and we rehearsed in a pretty unconventional way. On basically a soundstage, you need, you know, 60 feet or something of airspace. Is that right? I'm the one who should know that.
Why are you asking me?
And I forgot already.
Yes, Jessica's.
I've also, as a director of like plays and very conventional musicals, I've never talked about rigging so much in all of my, I mean, it's pretty astounding. So the process of it was very, very different than what is a typical process for a musical.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for making the time to be with us here today. We really appreciate you all for sharing your talents with us. And I mean, people come to the theater to experience something great and wonderful, and you've really, truly created something very magical with Water for Elephants. So thank you for that. And for everyone watching, you can head over to waterforelephants.themusical.com to get your tickets and enjoy this ride. Thanks again, everybody.